Well, good morning. It is great to be here. But before we start, I'm going to just get real with you for a minute or two. The elephant in the room is, yes, I'm sweating through my shirt, so you can just ignore that from now on. I know it's there, you know it's there, so let's just be real. So it's okay, it's hot. So we're all on the same page there. But here's another thing about being real. And this is like dangerously being real. I'm so thankful for this series because I got to admit, more often than not, when I pray the Lord's Prayer like we do every week, it is just the words. I have no clue what I'm saying. I'm just saying the words that I've memorized since I was this high. Many of you may be in the same boat. Just saying the words. So I'm so thankful that we are pausing and learning together what it is that we're actually saying, what it is that we're actually praying. And so I'm just thankful for that. And so we're continuing, as we obviously are, the Lord's Prayer, and prayer takes practice. So I'm going to read not all of our texts that we've been using throughout this series. I'm just going to read the first few verses of it, and it comes from Luke 11. And if you'd like to follow along, you may. Again, they're familiar words. We've read them, I think, every week. So it says this: one day, Jesus was praying in a certain place. When he finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples." He said to them, "When you pray, say, 'Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Give us each day our daily bread.'" That's where we're going to land today. Give us each day our daily bread. But before we do that, on the idea of just being real and honest, doesn't it strike you as interesting? Teach us to pray. I mean, if I'm real with you, if I'm a disciple, I'm saying something like, "Jesus, teach me that cool trick about walking on water." Or, "Jesus, teach me that one where, that one where we multiplied the fish and loaves of bread to feed thousands. That was awesome." Or even, "Teach me, how do you heal the sick and the blind and the lame?" That's just been crazy good. But they don't ask that. They ask him how to pray because I think it's pretty obvious to them, and I think it should be to us as we venture into this learning how to pray, prayer takes practice idea, that they saw his power, his peace, and his trust came from somewhere deeper, something that they didn't have, from a life that was anchored in prayer. Teach us to pray. This morning, I'm going to use a lens that is a little bit different than some of our other speakers. Not that they've been wrong by any stretch. It's just something that I heard somebody say early on in my studies of this, and I haven't been able to forget it. So it's a little bit different lens. It's a little bit more of a, as we talk about quite often, a 30,000 foot, 50,000 foot view of what this prayer is, because I think one of the things I want you to see today is that the Lord's Prayer isn't just a model of the words to say. I think there is something to it being a map. Jesus is showing us and his disciples how to live through the words that he teaches us to pray. He's not just giving the words, he's giving them, and ultimately us, a rhythm. A rhythm that aligns with the two greatest commandments that Jesus himself has shared. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and strength. And then the second, like it, is love your neighbor as yourself. So if you think about this with me, the first half of the prayer is all about loving God. If you remember, Payson talked about Father. Jesus is inviting us into, Payson called it, a scandalous intimacy. Hallowed be your name. Put God where he belongs. He is holy. And then last week, connecting with the Lord. Katie talked about your kingdom come, your will be done, and connecting with the Lord. And what about the second half? We'll talk about the first line of it, but just think about this. It's about loving our neighbor as we trust God to provide and share what he gives. Give us our daily bread, forgive us, and lead us. It all starts with a very basic ask. Give us each day our daily bread. Now, I think it's interesting. You don't have to understand Greek, but a lot of the people that you read when you're studying to preach a sermon, they talk about the Greek. So I thought, well, that's really interesting because I think it shows a real nuance as to what Jesus is saying. So in the Greek, in the original word, it would say something like this: our bread for the day, give us today. It's a bit redundant, yes. In fact, it sounds very Yoda-like. Our bread for anyway, that's another imitation that I shouldn't go to. Our bread for today, give us today. Jesus is not just telling us to ask God for all the things we ever wanted or ever needed. He's telling us to ask God literally for today. Again, let's just be honest with each other. Isn't it just a little surprising that this is the first request of the second half of the prayer? Would you have written it that way or taught it that way? I'm not sure I would have. I would have said, all right, Jesus, let's keep things holy here. Can't we ask for something a little more spiritual first? But Jesus says, when you pray, say, give us each day our daily bread. Why? Well, I think one reason is because he wants us to know that God the Father cares about our personal needs, our practical needs, and our material needs. It's about that relationship. God cares about you. God cares about me. He cares about the little things. Jesus is teaching us. He isn't just a lofty God who dwells in the heavens, that just sits back and shakes his head. This is a Father who knows about your hunger. This is a Father that knows about the stress of your bills. This is a Father who knows about your need for rest. He knows about your hope for healing. I could go on and on. I've lived this the last couple of days. Again, we're full disclosure kind of day. I've either been in bed or on the couch since Thursday with a high temperature, coughing, sneezing, feeling like my head was going to explode. I'm not saying any of that to explode you, but you know what my prayer's been since about Thursday at noon? Lord, just give me enough energy to get from 9:15 to 10:15. After that, no promises. Just give me enough for today, for this hour. But there's a God who also knows the other extreme. Most of you probably don't know this. In fact, I didn't even tell my wife I was going to share this because it just came to me. There's a period of our life as a married couple we had no income for 4 years, or basically no income for 4 years. It got so bad that, you know the commercial, Tom Coates, the guy you're supposed to call when you're in trouble? Have you all seen that commercial? It got so bad, I had an hour-long conversation with him, and he said, we can't do anything for you. I can remember like it was today, mowing the yard, saying, God, we need you. Give us our daily bread. He's a God who loves and a God who provides. Because he listens to his children. He listens to his children when they ask for the bare necessities. Okay, so I've spent some time earlier this week. We got back from a family vacation with some grandkids. So as I was preparing this, I thought, bare necessities, Bare necessities. Some of you know where I'm going with this. Bare necessities, 1967, Walt Disney's Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. Oh, man. Okay, some of you younger people are going, what is he doing? Go look it up. It's like top 2 all-time Brian Vande favorite animated movies. The simple bare necessity. You know, there's something profoundly childlike about what Jesus is teaching us. Jesus is inviting us into a radical trust, a trust that a child would have, asking for what we need today. Trust in the moment. Give us each day our daily bread. I know Katie referenced it not only this morning, but last week, and we know it, it's a very familiar. The reference to Psalm 23 and the green pastures. Many of you have heard this before, but let's remind each other what green pastures looked like. It wasn't Ireland green pastures, rolling hills, alfalfa up to your knee. No, green pastures in that world was maybe a little tough to grass in the crack of the rock. Just enough. Just enough. This isn't a prayer asking for a stockpile. It's not, give me what I need for retirement, Lord. It's, God, give me what fits for today. It's a prayer that roots us in the moment. Ultimately, it's teaching us that life with God is daily, it's humble, and maybe more importantly, it's dependent. Because let's be honest with each other. For those of us in this culture, most of us are not worried about bread for tomorrow. That's why we can just blow right through this part of the prayer, typically. Because it's not our daily prayer. It's not like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, there are times where there are struggles. There are times where we're not sure. But most of us, that's not our reality. Jesus is teaching us. Will we trust? Because it's about a trusting relationship. And again, I'm going to say a statement that is not real earth-shatteringly, whoa, I'd never heard that before. Trust is pretty easy when life is good. I get the opportunity at doing care with our church family and some of our community that you've got people that have deep, deep, deep roots of faith. They understand trust. But when your world gets rocked and turned upside down, trust is a whole nother level. And those roots need to be really deep. Because sometimes God's definition of what we need is different than ours. Would we all agree with that? So the question becomes, will we trust that He knows best? Just like a good parent who says, no, you don't need more sugar at 9 o'clock at night. You need rest. God knows exactly what you need. God knows exactly what I need. And here's the part where controlling Brian Vande sometimes says, he actually knows better than me. Can you believe that? He actually knows better what I need than I know. So here's the question I'm going to keep bringing to us. Can we trust God to the details of our lives and pray, give me today our daily bread? This prayer really is about relationship, about a radical relationship, one of trust. And when He doesn't, we can lean into His goodness. We can trust that God faithfully delivers in His time. God's timing is perfect. Jesus, teach us to pray. So to answer the question that I had as I kind of started in thinking about why would the disciples ask that, what was different about the way Jesus prayed versus how the disciples who knew how to pray the prayers, what was different? I'm going to suggest one thing is radical trust. We started with scandalous intimacy that Payson led us into. The second part of it, I think, is radical trust. Kind of goes without saying, again, those who study this prayer obviously echoes what the Israelites were going through in the wilderness back in Exodus 16. We kind of went through some of those things. And the disciples would have been very familiar with that story. If you're not familiar, the Israelites, as they journeyed through for years in the desert, complained about not having food, so God provided every day. They had just enough manna that came from the heavens for that day. No leftovers, no hoarding. And if they stockpiled it, it rotted. Why? Isn't it interesting how God did that? Why? Because the daily manna he was giving was more than just a provision for their hunger. It was a formation. In the wilderness, God was teaching them day by day to trust him. And I believe this is why Jesus put this at the front end of the petition part of the prayer. He wanted his disciples, including us, to trust. To trust. He's saying, don't leap into tomorrow's stress. Just ask me what you need for today. I'm already in tomorrow. You can trust me, he tells us. But here's an interesting pivot for us. The prayer doesn't just stop with the idea of trust, because the idea of trusting flows into generosity. It doesn't say, give me this day my bread. It says, give us this day our bread. This isn't a solo prayer we're looking at. This is a community prayer. This is a family prayer. Remember, the second half of the prayer, as I mentioned earlier, lines up with love your neighbor. I think Jesus is teaching us not only to ask enough for ourselves, but to also remember our neighbor. Because loving God always spills into loving others. And receiving provision leads into sharing that provision. I think Jesus is forming us into people who depend on God and then in turn try to help meet the needs of others. Here's what I've learned and what I've really come away with this last couple of weeks. When your heart trusts radically, it leads to radical generosity. Because it's not giving from abundance, it's giving from trust. Friends, when you know that you know that you know that you know that he's going to take care of tomorrow, helping your neighbor should not be a problem. When you know that you know and you trust the one that can provide. That's radical generosity. It's by having a relationship that radically trusts so that we can radically love our neighbor. That's the heart of this prayer. It reflects Jesus' two greatest commandments, loving God and loving our neighbor. So how do we practice this? This whole series is about practice. So today we're going to invite you into a prayer walk through our community, and Katie's going to come up a little bit later and kind of explain and share some of the details. But as you walk, My suggestion is, can we keep this little line of the prayer in your heart? Because, again, full disclosure, Katie asked us as a staff to practice prayer walking, what that was like. All right, so I was going to be a good staff, and I did it. I'm walking. I'm praying. I felt like Dory in the animated, it's like walking. Oh, wow. Then I'm walking. I mean, my mind was all over the place. I couldn't concentrate on it. It was like I couldn't concentrate. So here's my suggestion. If you're like me, and the idea of walking and just praying constantly for 30 minutes seems like, oh my goodness gracious, that's a little overwhelming for this brain to handle. Maybe in those in-between moments when you're not sure what to pray, I mean, because there's obvious places that you walk by the hospital, that's a pretty obvious prayer thing. You walk by somebody that you know, their house, that's a pretty obvious. But it's those 400 steps in between that, oh, what do I pray? This might be it. As you walk by homes, pray something like, Father, give this family the strength and provision they need for today. If they are lonely, bring connection. If they are anxious, bring peace. Or maybe when you walk by the local clinic or a pharmacy, Father, bring healing to those who are hurting. Provide medicine, support, and presence. Be near. When you walk by the food shelf, if you're out on that side of town, or one of the schools, or one of our friendly churches here, Father, provide for the hungry. Make me part of the answer. Help me not to just ask for bread, but to share it. Maybe as you walk by some of our businesses or someone that's working, say, Father, provide for this business and its employees, bless their labor, protect their livelihood. Maybe you see somebody that just looks discouraged, worn, or maybe even unnoticed on your walk. Father, give them what they need today, courage, companionship, hope. Use me to bring it. Can this part of this prayer just be part of our, not just something we do on Sunday morning as a routine? Can we lean into trusting? So as we close today, I think it would be helpful. I know it has been for me, so I think it might be helpful to ask a very simple question, and I'm going to ask you just internally to process this question for just a few seconds. What do you need from God today? What is your daily bread? Maybe it's literal bread. Maybe it's wisdom, maybe it's strength, maybe it's courage, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's healing, maybe it's forgiveness, maybe it's a situation at home, maybe it's a situation at work, maybe it's a relationship. Whatever that daily bread is that you need, ask God to bring that to your mind and then bring it to Him. Here's another question, because this one really hit when I was thinking through this. With what do I struggle? So I'll ask you the same thing. With what do you struggle to trust God with? Is it your finances? Is it a relationship? And again, ask the Holy Spirit to show you. Ask Him for help to surrender that. And in that process, can you cry out, Lord, I need you. Every day, every hour. I trust you. Total dependence, total trust. Very childlike. Here's my last being real with you thought. I have a tendency, maybe some of you can relate to this, I have a tendency to try to hold everything together. Not only myself, but everything and everybody. And here's the reality. That's a role that God has never called us to. Will I trust? Will you trust? Can I pray, Lord, just enough to face this day without falling apart? Can I encourage us to ask? because we have a Father who cares. We have a Father who wants to shape us through our asking. Our bread for the day, give us today. So I'm going to close with a little bit of fun. As you are prayer walking, as you are maybe in the future as you pray the Lord's Prayer, I want you to think of and listen to these words that I've kind of rewritten to a very familiar song. The simple, bare necessities we ask our Father, trusting He will give us just enough to make it through. He knows our needs before we say He's with us every single day. So pray and rest, He's always good to you. And when you know He meets your needs, your hands are free to plant good seeds, to share His love and kindness far and wide. So give your neighbor bread to eat, be generous with grace so sweet. God fills your life so love can be supplied. Yeah, man.